Many Magic the Gathering players ask the question, wait, what's going on here? Oh, it's kind of weird. This isn't that channel. With Halloween fast approaching, I figured who better to go as than the professor, one of the OG Magic YouTubers. So here we are. Hope you enjoy the video. Having played at the most casual pods and also some of the most competitive, I find that certain commanders are better suited for one environment over the other. In the case of the Master Multiplied, he's begging for extra combat steps, heavy protection, and as many stacks pieces as possible. He also happens to be in the best color for rituals, tutoring, and also that heavy aggressive play style. If you think that sounds casual, well, you may also be the same person that calls your $3,000 Kinnan deck a 7 out of 10. But today, we'll actually be spending $4,000 for a competitive The Master Multiplied deck. Here's the interesting thing about competitive play. It gives you a window into the real value of certain cards. This is because we'll be cutting all the fluff and only leaving the most cutthroat cards regardless of price. This is most clearly seen in the mana base with all of our artifacts. We only need to run 27 lands because, well, we have 8, 0, or 1 cost artifacts to replace them. We don't need to run as many redundant effects to make tokens because we just replace those with tutors to get the better effects. We can also run those suppressive stacks pieces here because we've rule zeroed and we know that we're going to be playing EDH. Everybody's on board with it. What you're left with is a destructive deck with narrow lines for winning, but it also reveals in this process which cards are the most valuable for an optimal commander build, even at a more budget price. Of course, when we get to building a more casual version of this deck, we will need to cut. But here's the beauty. We mostly will be removing supportive cards or simply replacing certain pieces with a less optimal version. The same goes for the mana base, cutting out all the extra fetches and removing the zero cost artifacts to leave us with a healthy mana base that is totally reasonable for a less power hungry table. Doing this maintains maybe 80 to 90% of the deck's spirit. Although slower, you'll be spending $3,500 less on this version. Either way, I would encourage you to use caution as your normal group may not enjoy playing against this style of deck. What's more, you may not enjoy actually playing this deck, especially if your enjoyment of the game is tied up with your friend's pleasure. And then one final note before we start to dip into other things, I just want to let everyone know that the competitive version of the deck is available in the description down below, and I would encourage you to look at it as we sort of go through the cuts and process of turning it into a more budget version. So as we start to strip down the competitive version of the deck, one of the first things that we need to do is cut out the 0 mana rocks in favor of lands. Easy. Next, we adjust the mana base by removing the excessive fetch lands and expensive land components with basics or just cheaper dual lands. Now for these two sections, the artifacts and then the mana base, I won't be listing all the specifics because at the end of the day, it'll eat up valuable time that we can use to talk about other things, such as revitalizing our deck strategy. Admittedly, this strategy is largely similar. Get out the master and then abuse the static ability to keep tokens around. We will still use extra combats. We'll still have infinite combos. And we will have some additional, admittedly slower support cards, such as Hate Mirage, Flame Shadow Conjuring, Morog, Fury of Akum, Saw in Half, Banshee of the Dreadchoir, and Perforos, God of the Forge. You see, many of the cards that we just listed wouldn't be able to make the cut because they require something that CDH doesn't really allow, which is setup. You see, they do have powerful effects, such as Flame Shadow Conjuring, making tokens for a single red mana. Banshee of the Dreadchoir becomes a near lethal threat after just a couple of attacks with our Myriad ability because our opponents will just be stuck top decking. Morog, well, really wouldn't be that good in a deck with running only 27 lands. We want to be running at least 35 to 36 to reliably trigger him. And Perforos, God of the Forge requires our board state to not be interrupted, which in my experience is rare. But these cards are still powerful. And cards like the Banshee, which don't really have a home, well, before they didn't, have a more reliable commander to work with, especially in the more casual setting. Let's talk about our instant and sorcery categories. In CEDH, if you look at our original list, it is just packed full of tutors, which eat up our slots pretty quickly. And admittedly, in that deck list, I could have probably run even more just to support the overall single strategy that we're going for. But here, since we're both being price conscious and aware of the shortcomings of our commander, realize that we need cards to sort of help smooth out our draws and also ideally synergize with our commander. That's why we'll be including Nasty End, Deadly Dispute, Night's Whisper, and Faithless Looting. You see a theme, right? Which is card draw. We need something in the deck to help ensure we can continue digging to our win conditions. Admittedly, we could include even more, but I made sure to reserve those spots for the additional ramp options that we lost by cutting the mana rocks. And since the 0 mana rocks are gone, we need other ramp sources to ensure that we can get our 6 mana commander out as soon as possible. Cards like Thran Dynamo and Worn Power Stone are very appealing choices in this department because based on the mana value, they ensure that we get our commander out the very next turn. And in the interest of utility, I added in Curse Mirror, which can enter as a legendary copy of one of our creatures, swing during our extra combats to make more copies, or to provide extra combats depending on what we are going for, all while not leaving the battlefield due to our commander's static ability. And even after all the dust has settled, this mirror sticks around as a 3 mana rock. Worst case scenario, we simply use it to ramp. I think now is as good a time as ever to discuss some of the combos in the deck. An oldie but a goodie is Zealous Conscripts with Kiki Jiki. Kiki will copy the conscripts, and when the copy enters the battlefield, you will target Kiki to untap. Then you just simply rinse and repeat to your heart's desire, making as many copies as you want. Another Kiki Jiki combo is using Combat Celebrant. You make a hasty copy, you attack with the copied Celebrant, exerting it, which will then allow you to untap all creatures, which then leads you to make another copy of the Celebrant with Kiki, and then you simply rinse and repeat until all of your opponents are dead. Or Rionia Fire Dancer, which leads to infinite combats with Breath of Fury, because we get to make tokens at the start of every single combat, and those tokens can then be reattached with the Breath of Fury. Not to mention, Rionia also combos with Combat Celebrant in a similar way that Kiki does. Also, Ortheon's second activated ability on Terror of the Peaks deals 125 damage for only 9 mana. I could keep going. This deck combos a lot, but this again is a clear case of we don't need all the crazy tutors or the fast mana to make this game plan happen. But now is a great time to discuss some tutors that I do like, specifically budget tutors. One of my all-time favorite is Wishclaw Talisman. This card is great for more casual play as you get to tutor up something threatening, but so do your opponents. It leads to a more balanced game state. But at the same time, you often get to reap the rewards first. Additionally, you can use the talisman as sort of a bargaining tool or a political tool, as most of the players at the table will want to tutor and they're more likely to make deals with you. Next is Diabolic Intent, which I run in nearly all of my Aristocrat style decks and is right at home here in this deck. Only 2 mana to directly tutor to hand is amazing. And this card price is shot down so much that it's extremely affordable for you to pick up now. The last tutor included on our list is Gamble, or rather, I like to call it Red Entomb. But the upside is so strong, you might as well run it for the low price it's currently going for. An honorable mention is Scheming Symmetry, which at the cost of a single black allows you and your opponent to tutor. I often find that this card is a super overperformer because even if the other player gets to tutor, you gave them the opportunity in the first place, which promotes a healthy alliance, at least for a turn. And if you're tutoring, you often only need an extra 1 turn to really go off. So give it a try, see what you think. And just like that, our deck list is completed. If you don't like competitive games, but still want to give the deck a try, I would look at the regular deck list down in the description below. Likewise, if you're more of a competitive lover, I have the competitive deck list down in the description below as well. The Master Multiplied has a ton of potential, whether played in the command zone or simply in the 99. I think that we'll be seeing this unique ability at all of our tables in the future. So even if you don't build the deck, I hope that I've educated you enough and you know what to look out for if you do happen to run into this commander in the wild. As always, you can find both deck lists and my others in my Architect profile linked down in the description below. That's also where you'll find my business email and storefront. The absolute best way to support me, however, is to subscribe to the channel. And I dressed up like this and I've been choking myself for like an hour straight as I film this video, so maybe I earned your subscription. If I did, please subscribe. Growing the channel means more outreach and chances to collaborate with other creators on projects. It also means that you get more videos just like this one. Support my addiction so I can continue supporting your addiction. I've been Kyle, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.